Oh, it's officially post-Christmas. And I'm standing here. I'm going to describe it real quick. It feels like I'm floating in nothing. Where there was once this fiery phoenix, this bird, had all these things it wanted to do. Now I feel sort of like in a vortex of something. Where the places that I was free to roam have now been replaced by the faces and the judgments of hundreds and hundreds of people, all woven together, like in Rick and Morty, when they had Mortys on all the outside of the dome to protect Rick from an evil Morty from being seen. It seems like I have an inverted evil Morty with all the different judgments of my viewers and subscribers and townfolk. So I want to bring up really quick that 2022 was very difficult. 2021 was sort of, my life goes in this peak of cognitive dissonance where half of me is controllable and the other half is like I'm at the whim of some type of mind control thing that shifts constantly. I don't know if that's ego versus reputation. And it's between both, where I'm neither, and I'm struggling to find a way to let myself come through this. It's like they've blocked off what used to be like a really precise sharpshooter is now like I have to just kind of like throw everything I can and hope that it gets there. I want to remind everyone how fucking stupid and sick this town specifically was with the police force here, that it's been more than 2 months of having to deal with these cops. That I'm very excited for the future. It's just a huge lesson I've learned is that your environment makes up a lot more of who you are than you realize. So I do like being in the war zone, and I do like feeling this pressure of letting my enemies think they got me. I think it's funny, and it makes it fun when I go on a walk down the street to have people that are so sick mentally that they think that we're ops. They think they're against me. And they're just like these small town guys that probably have an apartment, probably have a dog, have a full-time job. But there's just something about me that makes them go nuts. So it's fun to walk around town and see them all look at me, and then all of a sudden they're like, and then it's probably nature is stopping them, and that's what they're pissed about. Because nature remembers the time that they all treated the animals like shit, or they drove past the raccoon on the ground, dying because it got hit by a car. And nature remembers me picking it up and holding it until it died, and going and burying it, or trying to help it, or bringing it to a wildlife rehab. Or just the times that I was out in the forest, or just maybe as a kid when I lived alone on top of a mountain by myself in the way back of this long dirt road opposite an abandoned ski resort, where I would just sit alone, surrounded by trees and eagles and hummingbirds and deer and quail, and it was just me and my dad out there. Or maybe it's God. But for whatever reason, as a Sagittarius, I have all these things I want to go do. I create things that the world has never seen before. I swear to God, I just keep it to myself. And I'm always way too excited, like, not way too excited, but extremely excited to make it happen and make a difference, and make a change, and make an impact. But when I tell you that the world does seem to be systematically against me in a predictable way, where I don't even have to judge the people off their individual character anymore, because I understand there's an underlying force that's controlling most of the world. And hopefully that we're kind of transitioning every year as like a step up towards heaven, or step up to where that thing can no longer operate. 2025 is the year of the snake. Stranger Things, they defeat the Mind Flayer this year. Braveheart 2, after my ancestor Brian Boru that defeated the Vikings, that's happening this year. What other movies are coming out that they're making to impact the whole world? We have, it's my world, right? We have Braveheart and the Mind Flayers being defeated. I swear to God, I'm going to tell you guys right now, it'll be a year of classic rock. Remember how I called the Indigenous last year? And I called the One Man and the Guitar last year? I'm seeing a bunch of neon signs. So Capricorn is devil energy. It seems like my tarot readers are being either prohibited from me, or they're not tuned in as much as they were. Yeah. So I'm seeing a bunch of bad cops with fire extinguishers just trying to stop me, because why? Because they're not ready to change. They're not ready to accept the explosion that would happen if Casey was able. That's amazing. And the problem is they don't understand karma and the slingshot effect. And see, so one of the things, there's something in my head, and it's not in my head. I taught, like, from what I've seen from schizophrenics, they have this narcissism about them where they're not able to leave themselves and recognize what's really going on with them. There's this spiritual narcissism, this pride about themselves and God and all these things that keep them in this, like when I put a profile picture of myself as a king and I say I'm the king of the north, it's a joke. It's a theme that I can't escape from in my life, that keeps coming back, so I accept it. But it's not like I demand everyone bend the knee and that I think that I'm supposed to save the world. This is what I love to do. This is my favorite thing to do. It's what I've done as a child. It's what I've done since I was born. Like, my happiest memories in my life is hiding in the nest, being like, I was probably some type of animal for several past lives, where when I get back into my den like this, where the outside is right there and I'm protected on all sides, that's what I love. Because when I don't have that, I end up just escaping into my body anyway, where I'll disassociate and go inside and then wind up as somewhere way in the back of my mind watching. And whether that was from traumas as a child or from stuff in the past life, I think it's all cyclical. So I think it's all everywhere connected. So I think that it's just, everyone has those aspects of themselves that apply to everywhere in their life. And it would, if you neglect that aspect of yourself, it will be forced to come back to you in a different way because it's what you're here for, I think. And everyone's different, and a lot of people don't, it's hard for them to figure it, it's hard for them to find it because it takes a lot of excitement for the future, detaching from the, it's like this momentum force coming from your heart where you're able to try new things and take risks. And when you do that, it opens yourself up to be more in control, and you step into this free-flowing momentum, and that is where change can happen, and you start to ride the wave and be in the fast lane. And when you do that, you kind of get a grip, you get back in control of things. You're not at the whim of other people's perceptions and judgments. You get closer to being able to say, fuck off, I don't care. And it really doesn't affect you. I think I got so good at it that God forced me as a Sagittarius to jump into the places worst, where somebody that embodies that peace of mind and excitement for the future without all these social restrictions and boundaries, that where I just exist, birds chirp louder and congregate around me, squirrels come out and hang out with me. It almost feels like the leaves are brighter in the areas that I sleep, if that makes sense. Like when I was at Vivek's cabin and the other places, when spring sprung, every year when I live outside, every year where spring springs up and I'm out there experiencing what it's like, I'm feeling all the worms in the ground, and I'm feeling the little buds come up in the ground, and I'm hearing the song of the earth coming through, and I'm seeing how the energies of the trees are changing around the song. And when the sun comes down in the morning, I can feel all the bugs getting excited, and then the birds going to eat the bugs and then going to bed satisfied. It seems like the places that I go is where everything follows. Things congregate around me in ways where it takes a while for me. Wherever that happens and the animals congregate around me, usually then there's the separation, which is the second favorite part of my life, which is where I get up from this den and I go explore, and I go out and I talk to people and I go have fun, I go mix, and it seems like there's a world that has no understanding of what I'm talking about. So it's a lot of this like back and forth where I'm perceived as a challenger, and the people that I'm around, it's just years of abuse. Like I'll get up in the morning and I'll go through my day, whether it's taking a bus down a hill into town to get some food, or going to look for a job, or I used to go walk on the track, or I used to have to wake up in the institution and I would have to put my clothes on, do push-ups, wait for everybody to get ready, and then the staff would let us out of the locked rooms with the alarms on them, and then we'd go down and eat breakfast, and then we'd have to go back up, and then everybody would do their ADL stuff, and then we'd have to come back down, and then we'd have a little bit of group before we left and went to school. And then school for us was only about 4 hours, and we had 4 different classes, an hour each. Then I'd get, if the school wasn't so lenient and it was just as like Nazi Germany as the staffs back at the houses were, I would get in a lot of trouble for what I did. But I would leave class and go talk to my favorite teachers, and I would go to the front desk. Can you guess, for the OGs, her name was Robin, the mother of the Irish family that I met in the year of the horse, whose last name means Irish horse. And they had one of every zodiac, and the Sagittarius was the same 1211 as me, and her name was Jenna. Her name was Robin, and the dad's name was Dan. And guess where they moved? They wound up, their house burned down, and they had to go on this long 10-year journey, and now they're settled in Danville. And when they moved to Danville, I was coincidentally arrested because my lawyer didn't tell me that I had court. I never got an email, so I didn't know. And then I was magically picked up on the 11th and taken to, you guessed it, but it wasn't the 11th, it was the 19th, which adds up to 2, which is the secret 11. Because 1 and 1 is 2. That's the 11. And that's 9/11, and that's why all those different propagandas for the past 10 years before 9/11 had the big 11 and the Twin Towers, the 11. Because it's an ancient order that invented this system that goes well past ancient Egypt, probably back to Atlantis. And when Atlantis sank, I'm pretty sure what they mean by Atlantis sank is that they went to the bottom of the ocean. And another cool thing is that if there's waters above us and we're in a firmament dome, who the fuck is to say that we're not Atlantis underwater? I don't think we are, but I think that there's a good chance that that could be possible. And then these things that we're seeing in the stars are just other things like us. Who knows? I haven't gone up there. All the space footage to me is the same exact footage as if I were to point my phone up at the sky in the clouds and say that I was actually looking down at the ocean. I'm pretty sure I've seen footage of the moon landing, and I think they dropped something, and I think that he couldn't grab it because he was attached to a wire, so that when he jumped it would make him go higher. But he wasn't low enough so that he could grab the hammer that he dropped, so he was struggling to get on the ground during the moon landing. For whatever reason. It seems like the sun comes down and it commingles with everything, and all the conscious entities reflecting and housing the sun start to create things, and then they all interact with each other, and there's this big dance that creates the stage and the play that we're living inside, that we're all characters of. And some people have just been in it so long that they understand how to live here and how to not let it affect you so much and how to just enjoy it to the fullest. And there's a lot of people that don't. And it seems like the people that don't are obsessed with power games. All they do is walk around trying to make everybody's day worse. They target me specifically, and everywhere I go I have to deal with these guys that just seem to want to shut me down and destroy what I have inside. And all that's inside is this feeling that I've cultivated from suffering for my entire life. In preparation for an amazing experience in the future of my dreams. And in rebellion, or just with a boundary, a reflection. I had to reflect back all what they were doing to me. So I still got up every morning. The only time I didn't get up in the mornings, because it was tiring to go to school. A lot of times I would just pass out in the class. Like I would just start nodding off while I'm sitting up, because it felt like I was too high vibrational to be in there, and all the kids were really low. So in relation, they all had this like dense darkness that I would have to step into. And for the first, for the homeroom, that was like half an hour before classes started, the whole time I was sneezing, because I grew up in isolation. So when I'd get into this class with all these different kids that are breathing and talking to each other and all this, I would sneeze for a half hour. I remember every morning in Miss Gould's homeroom in 6th grade, I did have a girlfriend, because you know me. I had a girlfriend, and her initials were CC, so it's 33, whether she's real or not. Speaking of, her name had just popped up on my phone for a second before this, and she was teaching me. She would get really mad because she thought I was good looking, but she called me a wimp because, even if I had to erase my work on my paper, I would do the eraser really lightly, and then I'd go again, and then I'd go again, and I'd go again. And she was like, bro, just fucking rip at it, and then it goes away. So she dated this kid, then she broke up with me after the dance, and she was my real first kiss on a Ferris wheel at the town fair. And then She broke up with me. I know someone says you're boring. You're boring. Um, there was this kid that was shorter than me named Hayden, and he looks like John F. Kennedy if he was smushed into a 5'4" guy. And he talks like this, and now he's fucking fat as fuck. And he talks like this guy, so who cares if he was cooler than me in 6th grade? He wasn't, because I'm Irish. So, I guess you could put it that I'm not of the world. Let me see, okay. I guess you could say that I'm not of the world. If the world is just all these different... So when I'm reaching out right now and I'm looking at what I can do in the future, when I try to implement these things that I have that involve everybody, like my Braveheart, where I'm like, everyone can get together, everyone can start making clothes, we can start pumping the clothes, everyone can start making sure everyone cleans their house, everybody sets up a solar panel outside, and we start to slowly integrate my version of the new chicken coops, which is the solar panel that creates the crickets feed the chickens make the eggs, and then we can feed the chickens what we want, the right vitamins, the right ground, the right grass, and then we have a microgreen farm on the side in a storage container, one of those big shipping containers that you make a microgreen farm with the solar panels on top of the house, and then the grow lights that make the microgreen farms, and then you have the most nutrient dense food in the fastest way to pump it out possible, and then we slowly have those across the country so that we can slowly go against the GMO production and the people that are trying to keep us from this ascension and connection to nature, to Gaia. We have this farm outside in a storage container that has the ability to take the sun as it comes down into all the plants and connects through it. We could even have like the microgreen farm have this like root system that comes into the bottom of the ground, so it goes into the storage container so that it has connections with the roots to share nutrients with the rest of the mountainside or the rivers, wherever you do it, just to make sure that it stays in the mycelial network so that you're getting the proper nutrients that can nourish your soul, along with the light, probably from God or with the sun or whatever. And it seems to me that the clock and the Masonic symbol and the flat earth, those hands, is probably the sun and the moon, and it probably is a flat earth going around, and that's a big secret of time, the 666. And then escaping that means living in spirit, and then your body just becomes a vessel, and that's why you have to eat shit and garbage, because in contrast, if you want to live a beautiful life, you have to be... the things you do in the world have to be shitty and garbage so that your inner world can be in contrast to it. And that's probably why I have such fucking abuse outside of me every day with everything around me in the world, is because I'm always trying to conjure this epic, legendary, beautiful thing that no one has ever seen before. So it would make sense that I have this opposition and that I'm forced to live in a nest like this. But when it comes to the point where I'm like, I want to implement these things, I want to get you guys involved. I want to get you guys doing push-ups. I want you to fucking live stream to me, and we will post it on my channel of you guys with your phone out, like a time lapse or like a live stream on the side of you cleaning your entire space and then upgrading it to the style and theme that you like. So let's say you have a kitchen that you don't like and it's messy and you just avoid it when you leave. I want you to clean it. I want you to get decorations and shit to make it feel like your castle or your throne room, or a space that when you inhabit it, it makes you feel the way that you want to feel, so that you're more drawn to it and excited to go there. And then I want there to be like a workout space, a training ground in your house, so that your day, in your private time, instead of living in this pit of depression or whatever you're doing, trapped, you're excited for this introspective space that allows you to grow yourself to a point where when you go back out into the world, you can express yourself the way that you want to and learn to enjoy things. I did that for a long time. I started out really depressed. I thought that I had a brain injury. So I lived in a mess, and then all my friends turned on me. I went through, like, if you go through like the content of like the Aiden Ross dreams and all the shit that happened in 2020, there was a huge theme of betrayal because people were choosing their preferences for what they wanted in the world, and when they didn't like what the other person had, they would cunningly try to overstep them in a way that embraced dramatic irony so that the audience could feel like he had gotten power, like he had competitively stunted on the other guy, and that was the game. And that happened in my life because I was just blessed with discernment for the truth, that I could see the story that everybody was playing from their genetics seeping out energetically, and they had no way to understand that I had the ability to understand that intuitively. So it was this big game of everyone pretending that I was the broken down kick child, when really I was the guy trapped in the matrix, and then fighting for a solution. And then every time I got those solutions, all these different narcissistic parasitic leeches would go on attack mode, and suddenly there would be like, I'm meditating, I'm free, I'm locked in my room, I'm paranoid as fuck, I don't know what's going on, where I am, or what I'm doing. Everything that I thought that I knew before no longer works. I can't access my ego that I made fighting through DCF and fighting through homelessness as a child and leading all my friends to victory. My reputation had been stained. I had been beaten in a lot of fights because I couldn't think right. I had been thrown on medications that wasn't for me, like lithium, where I lost control and I was having trouble getting it back because I didn't have the gauntlet of an institution like a school to run through and to repair my sense of self and have all of these academic challenges to use my mind. So I was trying to stimulate that with beat making and making music. And I had a girlfriend that was the girl of my dreams for the past 8 years. And every time I dated her, it was like we'd just fall on the floor laughing, and it would be like the most amazing love I felt in my life. And I felt like it was somebody that understood me because she probably had a lot of trauma as a child too. And maybe we're old souls. But, and I'm a Sagittarius, she's a Gemini. And I'm a Taurus rising, which means everything that I do becomes this fertile, beautiful, North Node in Leo, nature-centered growth, living in this giant green expansion kingdom ecosystem, Taurus, of like springtime. And she's a Leo rising, which means that when she's at my house, it felt like everywhere she looked, I could see like this giant blast of this confident, dense sunlight, this black kind of melanated, even though she's not black, but that's how, to me, that energy feels melanated. Condensed sunlight in confidence. The exaggerated swagger of a black teen. But so that's what it felt like. So she would come into my house, the Gemini shit. But the problem is that I would see even back when I was 15 and I first met her, I just have this habit, you know me, I like to sit down on the ground. So she was wearing a dress on a swing, and her thing is that she loves to sit on the swing set. I love to sit on the ground, she loves to find a swing set, and that was our comfortable spot. So she had a dress on and I was sat down on the ground, and I was young and naive. I had no inclination of staring up her dress. It didn't even occur to me. I sit down like this where I'm looking down at the ground, picking at the grass, feeling the universe above my head, way beyond my mind, exalted up in space, and being like this filter tree of the grass and the universe. So I didn't it didn't even enter my mind to like look at what she's wearing. But obviously, like, she thought about that, so she got up and just walked away. But then my dad's voice in my head is like, you are responsible for that girl. You are in downtown Brattleboro. You are from a small town. You don't know what it's like to be out here. You just left it. You were in an institution for 2 years, and that was your introduction to city life, was being in the retreat and having to take the van to and from the places that you were allowed to go, like the riverside deep in the forest where the townspeople can't find you. That was the only way the insurance companies would let us leave the building. And then driving through with my mom on our visits sometimes across town. So I was like, I don't know anything about town life. I'm not from it. I'm not even from a small town. I'm from the literal forest way out, where I don't even have friends. So for me, that was like, that's how I feel about going to like Miami right now. That's how I felt about the city. So I was like, fuck, she could die, she could get raped, she looks nice today, I don't know what's gonna happen. So I like walked around for 20 minutes trying to message her, find her. She wound up in a local coffee shop, and I went in and met up with her, and then we talked, and then she just walked away again. And then the next time I saw her, she was walking with some guy up this big hill, and I was going down the big hill into town. So that made me real mad. Started doing push-ups twice. It's the same way Casey gets mad and he goes into the dungeon, and then he comes out with a six-pack and big muscles and new skills, and then he terrorizes everyone that abused him because he wasn't good enough. So eventually I dated that girl on and off for like 7 years, and at the end of it I just got tired because she would be on Snapchat talking to like 6 guys, and I read the messages. It never got sexual. It was a lot of like, she had mental illness and she needed a diary where she was living in this like play in her head about like all of the things in her day and all the ways that everyone feels about her, and that life just sucks. And she couldn't talk to me because I was angry and in public housing, and I thought I had a brain injury and I was fighting the Matrix. And every time she came in, I could feel the energies of all the people that she had spoke to. Now I know that she's a Gemini, so that's just natural that she picked up all this information. But back then I didn't have the confidence because I had been beaten socially and cognitively to deal with. So I just took it as like anger. I didn't like that she was doing that. I thought that life could be so much better. She was like, why don't you love me? All this shit. And I was like, I didn't tell her because I'm like, in my head, I thought it should be common sense. And this is the way my dad speaks. It should be common sense for you to know that that's not okay. He wouldn't say that's not okay. He would say that that's not a good idea. It's not a good thing to happen, to be talking to all these guys on your phone, even if you're not dating them. I shouldn't like open this girl's phone when she's asleep. And because I'm not from a city, I don't know what it's like for you guys. I'm sure you guys have Snapchat streaks where you open your phone and you have like 50 to 100 conversations with different people where you just say like, hi, what you doing? That's cool. Streaks. I'm from a world where you don't talk to anybody for the first like 16 hours of a day, and then maybe you have a conversation with your parents. And then the first friends I had, we didn't have Wi-Fi, so we would hang out all day, going down to the river, chain smoking cigarettes, on McDonald's trips. The nearest McDonald's was an hour, so we would save up. I'd take money from my mom, but my friends that had jobs would save up, and we'd take an hour-long trip down to McDonald's just to get a McFlurry, hang out in North Adams, Massachusetts for like 30 minutes, and then drive back before they had to go to sleep because they're Christian. They had a curfew and shit. So I guess that, and then while I was doing that, a lot of my peers that I went to high school with when I eventually moved down to that bigger town in Brattleboro, when we were experimenting with cigarettes and being out past curfew, these kids were doing coke and having orgies. Like a lot of the kids I grew up with were in their friend group, all fucked. They would do a bunch of drugs and fuck. So like I showed up thinking I just wanted to make art and make things better. And these guys were like already probably indulgent so much that they only had this darkness of whatever happens when you do coke. So I would like, when I walked, my feet would like leave the ground, so I would like bounce. Like I'd like step onto my toes and then wind up kind of tippy-toeing when I picked my foot up. So I would go like bounce. There was like a pep in my step when I walked. And I had this hat my mom gave me, this circular hat. And I didn't know how to dress. I like I had what was available to me. So I had dress shirts, I had a pair of jeans, I had nice shoes, like high top sneakers like Adidas, but the Adidas color would match. Because one time I was in a foster home, and there was a kid. I think he was probably the first person of color I'd ever spoken to in my life that I can remember. Like the first one-on-one conversation I ever had with a person of color. And that was when I was 13 and he was 14. And he was already having sex and sending nudes on Kick to girls. And I was like, I was playing Plants vs. Zombies and I didn't like to eat anything other than pizza. But he taught me to match your shoes with your shirt. So I only had dress shirts. And I had a vest, like a gray heather vest with a hood. So I would wear like that dress vest with the dress shirt, and then I'd roll up the sleeves on the dress shirts, and I had the shoes. So people thought I was a fag. People thought I was like a choir kid fag. But to me, I was like, I learned how to do that from a kid that caught a body when he was 13, and he was like a role model for a couple years. So I didn't know that was weird. I didn't have access to the movie. I had access to in the retreat was Guardians of the Galaxy, and I liked Groot. I liked the tree, and then I liked the Star-Lord guy with the red, Chris Pratt, dancing to an indigenous song, "Come and Get Your Love." And I bought the CD, and I had a Walkman that they allowed you to have a Walkman with a headphones, and you could go to sleep. I would go to sleep listening to the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack and the Ed Sheeran CDs. And then I think I got a couple stand-up CDs, and my favorite part was that every night you could pick out a different. They had this big case full of CDs. So before you go to bed, you could pick out what world you wanted to go to. And that translated to eventually I got a car later in life, and I would have girls and friends and tons of people in my car, and I'd have them sign my dashboard, and we'd get high, but I still had control of my mind back then. And I'd have them pick the CD. And then maybe should I tell you? It was every time I left my house with my friends, it was a choose your own adventure, where I would just hold all the different places we could go in my head. I'd come up with really cool ideas about where to go, and then I'd have them pick a number between 1 and 5. So the whole day, like a 16-hour day for these kids, because I'm an old soul, so they were kids to me. And I grew up quick because I was taken from my family. Like I was trying to kill myself at 7 years old. And I grew up in isolation, where all I had was technically probably my ancestors and aliens and otherworldly entities, angels, spirit guides, and then my father, Gary the Legend of Mount Snow, who's probably, if he's real, he was probably some type of like Celtic warrior back in the day. I can see him running into battle with the light blue tattoos with the swirls on them. If he's watching, that'll be pretty impactful, because that's the color of the clothes he wears, and that's the color of the RV that he owns, that has the same blue swirls that would have been tattooed on our body when we went to war back in Gallic times. So just the way that I can see how my dad acts, and the way that he responds to injustice and people treating each other like shit, and the way that his rage comes through when he bottles up everything that he thinks is wrong, and then he doesn't want to do anything about it, because the same way that I'm like, I can't go down there because they'll fucking call the cops on me for no reason. He probably has his own version. Like, I can't say this. I can't care about somebody, because then they'll respond violently to me. Leo Sagittarius. I can't go somewhere. He's like, I can't care. but then he'll bottle it up. And he used to get mad that I wouldn't speak to him. And then one time he blew up and started chucking knives at the corner of the house. I don't know what that was about. He started taking knives and then throwing them like throwing knives at the corner of the room. And then he ripped my books in half, and then he smashed my piano in half. And then he just walked around screaming for like a half hour. And I just escaped into my den in my mind, where I had full control over my body, so if anything violent happened, it would be easy to win. But I no longer have presence in my body other than control, because that's all in some little compartmentalized room in the back. That really helped when the world got overtaken by an invasive artificial intelligence during COVID that kept everyone in a state of fear and anxiety while they pumped us full of who knows what that made us act the way that everybody acted, and now they continue to act. That are getting worse, like the cops are getting worse. It seems like they can only survive off of us that made it. It seems like they're zombies that are trying to siphon us, our life force energy. They're like vampires. And they only exist to make everybody's day worse, where they sort of rape the town every day, and they hide that game that they're playing under the guise of their false perceived authority. Where back in the day, the white people used to embrace and would help them because they knew they wouldn't do it to them. Back the blue till it happens to you. So I'm sort of the opposite. Where I don't play any games at all. I don't care about playing games. When I played the game, I was extremely successful. I went from like a chubby autistic loser with long hair 10 years ago to within a year, I had 3 girlfriends, and they were considered the best looking. Even in the institution, all the attractive girls wanted me. To this day, they do. Even though I seem like a schizophrenic, crazy person that says off-handle things because he's fighting things in his mind that they can't comprehend, or they choose not to worry about because he experiences it so vividly. I'm seeing a Pisces. No, it's the South Park fish when they went into Mr. Garrison's ass. Lemmy Winks. When Lemmy Winks went into Mr. Garrison's ass and he had to be led by spirits to get out. I saw that fish king spirit that helped Lemmy Winks get out of the gay dude's asshole. But I only saw a faint outline of it. That's me, guys. What's up, Derek? I'm talking about South Park. What was I saying, man? Oh yeah, shout out Uncle Will, who sent me $10 the other day, and I didn't spend it. And I was like, fuck, I need to save my money. I need to eat something. And then he came through today and sent me another $10 and said, get yourself something to eat. And I was like, how the fuck did Uncle Will know that I was choosing not to eat anything today? I didn't eat at all today because I wanted to save my money. And I didn't tell anybody at all. And somehow Uncle Will knew to send me $10. So now I've been hiding at this place where I could probably get in a lot of trouble for being. And I've just been hoping that they won't care. Because it's pretty obvious there's a heater and an extension cord running under this tarp on the side of a business. And they show up at 5 to 6 o'clock at night. The doorway opens right behind me. They can feel my energy because I'm better at taking in the sunlight than they are. So when they leave their work, they can feel this giant presence. Yeah, my dad smashed my piano. I don't know. I picked up the piano because, no, I always liked instruments. my mom had a boyfriend back in the day named Dennis, and I would just break out into dance numbers that I didn't understand what I was doing. I thought, looking back, it looked like I was, but it wasn't. It was, now that you look at it, the way that I was dancing is exactly how guys in the people in the Philippines channel the sunlight. I was doing a literal sun dance, like my album is called. And then another story, my first ever sleepover that I can get, it just blanked. A lot of my memories are just completely deleted, where I know that I ate things and hung out with people and made jokes and had fun, went on adventures, but they just, neither I nor the other person can remember anything that happened those nights. And that happened a lot in my town, where a lot of us just don't. Whereas people in the forest, like that live out in Whitingham, they can remember their entire childhood pretty much every day. They can like look back and this way, and then that leads to this way. With us, it's just like, if our memories are a tree that's growing, they just snipped a lot of our buds, snipped a lot of our branches. But the first one that I can remember was down the road from Dennis, and I went there to stay with my friend. And he's a proud Irish last name that goes back way, same as their family was at the same war as Brian Boru in the Battle of Clontarf. So I was hanging out with him. We watched I remember we were watching a TV show about birds. No, there were these giant ships that were giant metal birds, and they were fighting each other in the sky. And I liked the one that was red and white and yellowish, like gold. And then there was like this deep brown one that I liked too. And then Sean liked the red and white too, and I think he liked some like bluish gold. And I remember going to sleep, and I couldn't sleep, and there was a demonic black alien in the corner, and I was awake, and the light was shining so heavily on me that I couldn't sleep. The high vibrational light was so much that I was just sitting there processing it, and it was sort of like they were defending me against the family. So the family was asleep, and they were keeping a shield around me, and I could just see from my Aquarian moon, disassociative, that there was this dark entity that was watching me, and that was just standing there, and there was other stuff. So I was like, I'm not gonna stay here. I'm just going to leave. And then I can remember the same voice that I associate as like my imaginary friend or my spirit guide helped me get down the road 5 or 6 houses back to my house, or to Dennis's house. I left the door open, which freaked the parents out. They didn't like that at all. That I just got up and left in the middle of the night and left the door open, so anybody could have walked in. But it was a different world back then. Things were a lot different 15 years ago. The entire world was different. We were still in Pisces with no sight of Aquarius yet. So it was a lot more difficult for people to swim up into somebody's house. The same way now, it just seems like the house is barely there. It seems like a dollhouse compared to the outside at this point. So it's pretty easy for people to run up to somebody's porch and take everything and leave. We're in an air sign. We're approaching an air sign. We're not deep under the water where we have to use our muscles to swim. You know what I'm saying? Something just tried to magnet my consciousness out of me. Did you see that twitch? It's spiritual war. And I know how to do it. I know how to solve it, but every time I start fasting, sunlight, probiotics, ketosis, autophagy, neurogenesis, staying out in the forest, imagine nothing and reverse it, use the Higgs boson to extend your presence and control back through your body, ground yourself to the earth, let go of all your false belief systems to find your natural state as an observer, and then start to consciously create the life ahead of you, and then push it to the limit, take risks, follow your passion, act on your highest excitement. Then just stay consistent, do the most, do all the things you want to do, learn skills as you go, character development, individuate, and then eventually, as you become a creator, you start to chase perfection, and that everything you create and get inspired to do leads you back towards the divine. And eventually you learn how to house the divine better, to embody your true self and be yourself to your extent of yourself, to create your best work, and then you become a classic, and your life becomes closer to perfect. And you don't want to eat the McDonald's because it makes you feel sick and you pass out, and you want to do the thing. You want to sit in the dirt with the worms because you know that that's the best way to feel closest to God. And God, I don't think, is like a guy in the sky. It's something I don't want to give any sort of characterization to. But I'll tell you, most of my day is me sitting here rocking back and forth, being like, I can't believe that God would do this. I don't believe God would do this. There's no Christian or Islamic God. I don't believe in any type of God that would allow me to experience what I'm going through every day. Most of my days, I'm not even saying fuck you, God. I'm just saying God wouldn't do this. If God was really, would not do this. So I am looking for alternative solutions to that problem. I don't think it's God. But I know when I look up, and sometimes I get given a song or an album or a piece of a puzzle in the greater narrative of my life, like a sneak peek into the next chapters and how they fit together. That kind of connecting link that I was missing about how all my albums fit together. Before I even realized that my albums are Soul, Storm, Sword, Sundance, either like Sierra, Sarajevo, Savior, Sudicere, See You Around, Salvation. I don't know what to call that album, but I have lots of contenders. And they were all S, and I didn't realize it until I got this bike that I asked God for a bike together, and then a bike spawned down the road, broken, and to fix the bike I had to come here, which is why I'm here in this town. And it's got a big S on it, like Superman has. And I used to wear, I'll show you, the video that I get my producer tag from, I was wearing a shirt with a big S on it, the big Superman, and it was gray, like my favorite color. I like to drive cars that are gray rather than black. I don't like to drive black cars. I like to drive cars that are like a dark gray. Gray is probably my favorite color, other than green, red, black, and gold. But I like the way that pink goes with green. As I'm looking at this right now. I didn't mean to say that. Like, that's how I feel. It's an opinion that I've had for a long time. But I said that right when I'm looking at the contrast between the green and the pink. Something about green and pink I like a lot. Because it reminds me of how it feels to be me with trying to pick up all the energies of the higher vibes while also staying grounded in the forest. Sort of like Sagittarius' man in nature. The flower and the stem. Which is cool that I have this tattoo. I don't know if you can see it. But yeah. So I have a lot of ideas. Hopefully this was the universe showing me that Vermont is not worth saving, and it's something that should be destroyed, and that I shouldn't have. I devoted about 10 years of my life to developing systems that would save everybody. I know growth, like at 14 years old, I invented, without realizing what people had called it, I invented growth over consistency, rest, push-ups, negative reps, supersets, supplement use, having a structured daily routine, not going to school. And I had a natural sense of picking up on spirits as a child. Like I understood that they come through the water and that water is housing consciousness. So when I would get in the water, I would feel the entities come through the water. When I would I had this, I'm telling you guys, I'm going to show you guys at some point. Let's do maybe 1,000 subscriber special. Is when I'll have a car. I'm gonna schedule a live stream where we're gonna put you guys to use, because I have a lot of places that would be very impacted in a good way by having a lot of supporters reach out to them to ask them for favors, because small town communities operate from favors and doing good things for each other, with the understanding that everybody, if the time comes, would be willing to help. That grounded kindness that they do not extend, that's been exposed this year, that they do not extend to people that seem to, what I've recognized, is have a better understanding of grounded individuality, freedom of expression, and a greater appreciation of life. That they can't recognize that because those people also have suffered so much trauma that they can't function well outside of the forest alone in a place where they feel like they're not going to get descended upon by cops, creeps, and cunts. So those people, when they go into town, like any sane person would do, they don't act like a fucking nut job trying to stomp on everybody for their reputation and playing stupid entitled power games based off of white pride and privilege. They just are there, and they're excited to get their drink from the dollar store, and they like to empathize with the guy at the register and try to make everybody's life better. If they can come up with a joke, they'll say it. But what I have to deal with on a daily basis, and what I see everybody else having to deal with, is these white pricks that stomp in, and anyone that operates in a way that they don't like, they will try to kill. Socially, spiritually, and then they will weaponize police to do it physically. They'll lie to the cops just to get them away. Get them away. I don't like his hair. I don't like the way that he spoke. He cut through all my bullshit and had a conversation with the cashier that I was trying to dump my culture on. Like this, haha, I don't know, that's the best way to put it. They express attributes. How would you say it? This is where I should be live. That's where I should be live streaming. Is those conversations to pick up that culture, but I didn't do it. Why didn't I do it? Why didn't I do it? Because I was waiting to maintain the sense of self that I would lose in the morning when the people would show up to bother me and the crows would scream at me. When they would suck out everything and destroy me, and I'd be there feeling in pain, empty and lifeless. So I would have to get up and I'd have to go get the ice cream in the McDonald's, and then I'd have to find a place to hide where I could start to take everything back in and build myself up. And then at the end of the night, I would make content. So I didn't really record me walking, and I felt it was impolite to record people without their knowledge in a way where I don't have the ability to bless them afterwards. So I didn't want to walk through the dollar store and talk to the depressed guy that's stuck at his job in the Matrix and record him without his knowledge with everybody. I would have rather waited until I had the like a tripod that I could hold with a camera, talk to them where they knew the camera was rolling, and I had the ability to make a better conversation when it was my turn to talk, so that I could leave them better. And then even now, like a lot of my food stamps this year went to paying for other people's stuff, where I'd go to the dollar stores and I would buy people their favorite drink, and I would go to even like in the places that hated me, like Randolph, I would go and buy people stuff, and I'd buy whole pizzas sometimes at Cumbies for people, and I'd just leave it and say, like, the next 10 people, give them free, that come in for a slice, it's on me. And I'm pretty sure they didn't, and I'm pretty sure they probably ate it for themselves, because those guys used to wait for me to show up, and then they would throw out the food, and then they would, if they knew I was coming or I was in the area, they'd go out and pour coffee grounds on the food they threw out in the winters, and they said to keep the bears out. But you know me, all the bear theme in my life, who knows if they're real. Yeah. It's 3 o'clock. At 6 or at 4:30, I'm gonna go. I have to put this back into my tent. I have to carry this away so that they don't bother me, because I don't know if I can do another day here paranoid that they're gonna call the cops on me. I'm not afraid of the police. I don't give a fuck about the cops. It's the qualified immunity that out here, it's hard to sue people to that, and they have a decade's worth of games they play to make your life so bad that you resort to violence, like stalking and harassment. The police have been stalking and harassing me for 4 months now. At one point, it was every single day, every night for about 2 weeks, where they would stalk and harass me after they had used excessive force and what's considered police brutality. Why would they do that? I don't do drugs. I don't commit crime. It was gonna be in the middle of October. I was sleeping in a sleeping bag outside, and that was it. It was going to drop to 20 degrees. So I was worried I wasn't going to make it. I didn't have any blankets like I did last winter. I was unprepared, so I thought if it's going to be 20 degrees and I have no heater, I have nowhere to go, nothing to do. I was scared of using the outlet because I didn't want the police to show up and hurt me. So I stole a $7.99 propane tank. And turns out, they freaked out so much that they sprayed mace into my eyes, nose, mouth, ear, hair, whole face, neck. So I choked and I felt like I was suffocating. And they wouldn't tell me if an ambulance was coming. They did that over $7.99. Turns out, it's called exigent circumstances. And there's another law about it that says if it's to survive, it's less than a misdemeanor. If you can provide proof that you were going to die and you took a $70.99 propane tank, they don't care. Just like in the hurricanes, if you take a inflatable tube from a store and there's a hurricane happening and you're worried about your family, they don't care. There's a law. I forgot the name of the law. ChatGPT knows. So even then, they had no reason to rip me out of the tent, mace my whole face, put me in a painful wrist lock it so tight that if they had left it long enough, it would have caused permanent nerve damage and I would never be able to play guitar again. Force me on my knees in order to breathe by shoving the bottle in my eyes, nose, mouth, and forcing me to suffocate myself and drown myself to get it out. And then when I spit, he said I spit in his face, and he pile drove me into the metal stairs of the ambulance and started choking me. The guy started choking me, guys. He couldn't break my arm and break my wrist. He tried to rip my arm backwards. And when that didn't work, I said, fuck you. And I spit. And I don't think, I'm looking back through my memories, I don't think I spit on his face. He said I spit in his face, and then he lied about where he spit. And he said that it didn't hit his face at all after he told everyone I spit in his face. He said it. So I owed him $300. So he tried to charge me after he pile drove me into the metal stairs of an ambulance and choked me out. And then he went into my tent and stole something from me. And then he made up a lie with the rest of the cops to try to charge me $300. Can you guys figure out why? Because I can't. I can't see a reason he would do that. Other than some made up thing in his head based off of how I look. They lie and abuse, and this guy's saying is he pulls over women that he knows have had trouble with drugs in the past, so addicts that are may be unhoused. He'll create a bogus charge, turn it into something major like he did with me, and he'll say, I'll get you off if you get me off. And he'll extort them sexually for a bribe. And it's not a coincidence that the day after I posted a video of somebody giving me a testimony of that I was shot at. Someone shot at me right after I posted that live stream. From several places, lying to the public, saying that I'm a crackhead. You know how people in small towns will go around just gossiping all day? They would lie to try to ostracize me from the community. Then when that didn't work and I recorded them following me and harassing me and stalking me, trespassing on private property to do so, just to shine their head while I'm trying to eat my McDonald's. Isn't it annoying? Imagine it for a half an hour. And they believe or they don't, because when that didn't work, then they sent mental health workers to try to force me to leave town. They tried to force me to leave all my things where they could steal it from me. So they tried to force me to leave my tent site, and they tried to ship me to an institution far away. And then when I beat their tests, they also tried to push me down a hill, down a cliffside. They made my structure that my tent is on unstable by kicking it and pushing it and lifting it and trying to on a steep cliffside, trying to force my tent to fall. Eventually just kicking my shoulder at the end. I'm not going to say he meant to kick my face. I don't think he meant to kick my face. So we're going to say he hit my shoulder. The same way that maybe I spit in his face and he said I spit in his neck. I'm not going to tell the truth that he kicked but I have to, so maybe I will. It depends on if they have the body cam footage, but it seems to me that they dropped all the charges of me spitting in the guy's face. Whether I did or not, I had pepper spray in my eyes. The guy's shorter than me. I was wearing boots. He's shorter than me. I spit with my chin up. Been in the hood. I know how to chin check, so I keep my chin up. I don't think there was any way I could have hit him. He said I spit in his face. I'm taller than him. If any spit hit him, it would have hit the top of his bald head. Plus, I was lifted onto an ambulance where they were trying to get me to step up onto a structure. So I was already anticipating being lifted. And the guy yanked me backwards. And he yanked me backwards because he put my arm in a painful wrist lock and then locked the torture cuff so tight I lost feeling in my hands. There was an active open wound that I showed the nurse. And he putting my arm forcibly where the other cop had no issue putting my arm in a nice spot where it was fine. He had no issue. The other guy did all that because at the very end, he yanked it backwards in a desperate attempt to dislocate my shoulder or break my wrist. He's also, whether he knows it or not, he's very good at playing for the camera, where the words that he says, the way that he says things, centered around the arrest, would make it seem emotionally like he's not doing what he's doing, when it's obvious to people that look with their special eyes what's going on. Like the fact that he lied about why he was there. At some point he started talking like this. And I called it out for the body cam before I could have the live going, but you can see on the live I address it where I'm like, are you gonna keep talking like this? Like a nut job? Which is called escalation. It's called creating an unsafe environment to entrap you into committing a crime. They make you feel unsafe so you react in a way that might be suitable for an arrest, which is called entrapment. So he made me feel unsafe leaving my tent by lying about why he was there, stomping around, making it feel secretive and weird, making it feel really uncomfortable about why he's there, refusing to leave after he had already said he was going to leave. So they were like, we're just going to hand you the cite. So they cited me illegally, first off. They didn't have my ID. The officer that cited me said that he had never met me before and has no idea what I looked or sounded like. Yet they cited me without my identification. So that was already illegal, which makes everything past that illegal, which is why they threw out everything. In a desperate attempt to cover up the body cam footage of him screaming at me, making me feel unsafe so I wouldn't want to leave, which then they later tried to have me as resisting arrest. So they set this up for a week so that they could do it on a weekend where nobody would be at work or around to see what they were going to do to me. Luckily, without their knowledge, I had gone down to Walmart and replaced my phone. Hold up, my phone screen is cracked. I can't fully read that. They could have just blanked you out and then should have. I can't see what that word is because my phone is cracked. But what they should have done, and what I was hoping they would do, and I didn't help them through it because I knew that they were too narcissistic and full of how much experience do they have sexually abusing women and abusing their power, diluting themselves with meth and other drugs that they can't breathalyze or piss test that they do. Helped. What they did, what they should have said is, hey, I don't know if you know, but we have a warrant for your arrest because you missed court. And we also have a citation for you for stealing a $7.99 propane tank. If you have $50, or we want to help you out because it's a weekend, we know you're going to go in for 3 days. If you go now, your bail is $50. If you have any way to get $50, we'll work with you to get you that $50 so that you can stay out for the weekend, and then we'll give you your court date, and then you show up to court, where then the judge will find you guilty or not, and then you can serve your jail time. Instead, what they did was torture, what's considered torture, waterboarding. I don't know if you guys have ever been pepper sprayed, but have you ever touched a pepper and it burns, and then you accidentally touch your face a little bit, and then it will burn for 6 hours, and you have to try to find a way to wash it. You have to do different lotions and apply shit to it to get it out. I had that in my eyes, nose, face, mouth, throat, neck, entire ear. So somehow he got this and the entire ear. Look at my hair. How did he get it in my ear? And then down the side, where it took the nurse about 45 minutes to get it out after I had already had them, because I couldn't. It's on video. I'm screaming in the video like, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. I just quit cigarettes. I'm sick. You sprayed it in there. It's coming up. I need help. Did you call? I didn't hear him call the ambulance. In the video, you can hear him call the ambulance. I couldn't hear him call the ambulance. I asked him if he called the ambulance, and he refused to tell me, to keep me in a state of fear that I was going to die. Then they took their time searching my tent, looking for the water where you can go back through and see that he started searching my tent. The other guy made a joke about accidentally pouring. He's like, that wouldn't be good, about pouring grape soda in my eyes, when the water is literally right next to the grape soda. There's the grape soda, and then the water is right next to it. He goes, I see the grape soda. And then he starts to look through my tent, pretending he's looking for the water that's literally right next to it. And the other guy's making jokes about it while he's watching his coworker, where the water is visible. So I was forced to sit there longer. After he put me in the wrist lock, then like 5 or 6 times I couldn't breathe, so I had to get on the ground and I had to have them stand over me and pour the water in my eyes, and then I had to reach for it to get the water in there, to try to get it out until I could breathe. I felt like I was dying. The people showed up, and all I could say was, help me, help me. And then they were loading the ambulance down. This guy was still giving me a lot of attitude that put my arm and did all this. The other guy was trying to help me up into the ambulance. The other guy said, wait. And he ripped my arm backwards. I said, fuck you. And then the fuck you brought the spit up. I can see. I wasn't intending to spit on his face. I don't know. My eyes were full of pepper spray. But what we do know is that he lied several times about the spit. And so did 3 other officers lied about the spit. But we know what he did do was pile drive me into the side of the ambulance. And he admits in his report, he said that he tried to block my mouth and nose. What he really did was start choking me out. And that's why you can hear me go, why? Because your feelings are hurt? You can watch the video back where I'm going, why? Because your feelings are hurt? Because he's choking me out. Watch the video back where you can hear me. There's no reason that I went, see how I'm talking now? You can hear me start to talk like this. Because he's choking me out. Choking me. And he knew he's a cop, where he has to be in control of every situation and picking up information to use later. So he just had me screaming, I can't breathe, for 20 minutes for them to choke me out at the end. And I'm going, be kind. I'm saying, be kind. And my arm was still locked in the painful wrist lock in my back like this, where they did the torture cuffs to cut off circulation to my arm, which if they hadn't addressed sooner than they did, which took a long time still, and they admit it on camera, any longer, and there's a good chance that I could have not been able to play guitar for the rest of my life. I've looked up videos about it. They call it torture cuffs. It's to cause permanent nerve damage, where they I think he intended to, because he put my arm in a wrist lock, and he put it as tight as possible on purpose, and he did all this. So it's pretty easy to assume that was the plan. I don't have access to other cases open or other lawsuits filed against him to know if that's a common thing in his arrests, is to try to destroy their life forever. But that happened. Then the sheriff showed up because the other guy would not come into the room. They said they have a policy against people being recorded by police with body cams when the nurse is recorded. And the body cams, what are they going to do with the body cams? Show the judge? And then regardless, he came in anyway. So regardless of that argument that the cop was not hiding from me and not hiding from the torture cuffs, was in fact, and then lying to the nurses, talking shit to try to have me further ostracized from the community by playing as if I'm some problem person. When really I'm a genius. Until the sheriff showed up and someone from the sheriff's department fixed my cuffs and then brought the guy in to show the nurses station for a testimony later that my cuffs were fine the whole time. Then we had all this came out, and I started talking about it and vocalizing it and recording the people talking to me or stalking and harassing me. What did they do but pick out a loophole? So they searched through my entire channel. They found anything they could that might suggest that I was mentally unstable. Cherry picking information from my channel that they sent a mental health worker in because the cops would not legally be allowed to approach me without it being considered harassment and stalking and intimidation and an abuse of power. Unnecessary escalation, impeding my progress, violating my Fourth Amendment right by illegally detaining me. Instead, what they did was weaponize a mental health worker to show up loaded. The woman was aggressive, already with the agenda that I'm going to haul him away. And she literally said she's going to haul me away in an ambulance. She was snarky. She had an attitude. They had shaken my pallets, kicked me, touched me, felt me. If I was a woman, they would have felt my tit, but felt me reaching to see if I'm in there. Violated my Fourth Amendment by opening the tent up already, because you can't visibly see what was going on in there. So they had to open my tent and look inside, which is illegal. Then they made up that they lied about me breathing. I was holding my breath. He lied about me breathing. Then threatened me several times. Threatened me with violence. They threatened me. They threatened to hurt me if I didn't answer the mental health worker who was being sent to find whatever reason she could to haul me away in an ambulance. Because I said I didn't like white people. And I have a list of everyone that's done me wrong. And I hope they get what they deserve. And I hope God gives me the opportunity. And then I put, but God does not give me the opportunity. He literally gives me the opposite. I say, give me a bird right to left. And I'll go and I'll save up money. I'll learn martial arts. I'll buy a ghillie suit. I'll sit out in a tree and I'll pick them all off on their way to work. Give me an eagle right to left. Make it land on my arm. Give me something so obvious I can't escape it. And then an eagle shows up and slams into the water the opposite way, throwing water at me to be like, fuck no. Let me do it my way. I'm listening, but you don't have to take it that far. And that's what I posted. So they took that and they only got mad about the white people because I posted the exact same thing with black people and indigenous people. I copied and pasted with black people and indigenous people. And she only showed up and she made it clear that she said, what did you say about white people? Meaning she doesn't give a fuck about black people. That's how she said it. So then when I beat her test and I beat the boss battle and I threw it back in her face and I made her seem stupid, I made her realize she's stupid because I explained to them all the ways that they had just violated my rights and made them realize what they did. And when she jumped to their defense, I called her out. And then when she couldn't answer my questions, I'm like, oh, are you a law scholar? And she froze in place, possessed by the Matrix. Probably her alcoholism and her bad habits and her cigarettes. And probably her love for the darkness and the apathy that fuels white American society. That possesses them and that drives them to do these things in relation to me, who just sits out with the North Node and Leo, Taurus rising, sitting out in the woods, feeding the squirrels and the birds, And then they come to attack me because a girl winked at me on the street, and then was like, oh, the fucking cop is staring at me. Which is what happened with Officer Washburn in Brattleboro. That started this whole thing. It was that I had a pedophile neighbor harassing me because I make music and I was doing it as a passion and for a living back then. I had soundproofed the room. This was before I left on this epic journey. And I lived in a place where there was a brothel upstairs, where there was prostitution happening in the projects of Vermont, the closest you can get to the projects in Vermont. It's considered the hood. Like, people from New York come in like, Brattleboro's the hood, man. You're from the hood. And I'm like, it's not the hood. We had kids with guns, but the kids with guns lived out in the forest. They'd still shoot you. And they'd still talk like they were from the hood because they got it from Instagram. They still did hard drugs like bath salts and shit. But you don't have this extreme amount of people in the area, this density of too many people going on all at once, and a lack of trees. So it's different. So like I won't say I'm from the hood, because I'm not. I'm from a dangerous, poor part that's close and closer to the hood than anywhere else in the state. What's funny is that the further you get from that place in Vermont, so the further you get up to here, the more they act like they are. This place is cool. I do like the kids from this place. The point was, they weaponized that mental health worker with an agenda that she expressed to exploit loopholes to throw me in an institution where I would be taken from my things, kidnapped from my life, and forced to be in a place everybody knows, a horrible place. They were not, especially when you've lived as an animal as long as I've had, where you have to judge the other person's emotional state and you have to understand where they're coming from, because they could rape you. They could be giving you this food to warm you up to them so that they can say, hey, I have a place to sleep. And then when you think you're asleep, they're going to come in with a gun and rape you and force you to suck them off. That's never happened to me. It's never gone that far, but it's gone close. And it's happened to other people I know. Those are creeps. The cops, creeps, cunts, crows, and crackheads. In my bio, in my book, in my Wikipedia tab, there's going to be a little creep section that's going to have that hit on the girls at Starbucks that are fat and drive the trucks, that see you as a whole, that when you're on the street they know that you don't have a family to go back to or a place to go back to, so they're gonna butter you up so that they can use you like a whole. And if they can't, they're at least gonna farm you spiritually by degrading you and downing you and trying to suck out your life force energy and literally become you, so that they can express that energy to the girls that they harass at the Starbucks, hoping that the girls will feel that emotional, spiritual wealth and let them, maybe there's a higher probability of them having a chance. And they built an entire system off doing that, which is why the prom, it's one, why the girls wear the dresses at the high school basketball games, and two, it's why they used to have the rose on the prom queen's tit, that would, the prom queen would go around and all the guys at the restaurants would smell the girl's rose, the 40-year-old guys that work at the restaurant. They built a system to be as close to pedophiles as they can. Those are creeps. Creeps will also follow you. They are emotionally invested in you. They put you on a pedestal. Not in a way that's like, you know, how you'd care about a son, but just like it's an emotionally unhealthy way of them escaping their own life into yours, because they latch onto your suffering, and they don't, at least for me, they don't, I'm seeing a capybara. A capybara just came through for a second. And then I'm hearing the rescue ranch go cappity blappity. So maybe it's suggesting I make better content. It's not just fun, I believe you have a voice. Yeah, I'm sure they, like, imagine what they do to people that don't know their rights and don't have, like, a year's worth of watching these videos from, like, First Amendment audits that are on drugs out in the woods. Imagine what they do to those guys. Imagine what they do in the 80s. The police do it, one, because it's a way to get them off emotionally, but it's literally, if the same system believes that I need to go talk to a psychologist, so they believe that the psychologist, what they have to say is valuable and is closer to what real life should be, and that people should go see a psychologist. And what the psychologists believe, what they went to school for Freudian psychology and Jungian psychology. Manly P. Hall. There's another one I can see, but I can't name fully. But basically, it's all about psychosexual dynamics, where everything that we're saying is bounced back in sexual energy in relation to each other, where our psychology and our perception of reality changes in reaction and in response to our own belief systems, paradigms, relationships, and things that happen in the present moment. And that our reticular activation system is always picking up and changing, and our senses are always being taken in and changing that. So in this constant change of what our senses and what our eyes are picking up and what our relationships have, and that's producing how in Christianity, how you should judge a man by the fruits that he bears. So the fruits that we're bearing is our presence and our where we are right now, our emotional state. So cops abuse homeless people because it's like they get experience points in a game where they degrade and abuse and attack a homeless person, steal his fruits, consume his fruits. That adds on to their spirit, like they drained his sexual life force energy. Then they add it to their own. Then they also attack his network and community of people because he's going to be trapped and commit more crimes. It's going to incite him to do something violent so that they can put him through the systematic process, which will put him in a worse position, which will make him closer to a slave, and which will give them more power, more sexual dominance, more perceived social status, shinier, more appealing, attractive fruits spiritually. So they use him as a farm, in the same way that your job uses you as a farm. So they attack homeless people and they abuse guys that they feel are more attractive than them. And they specifically, that's why they go off the wall and they go nuts at First Amendment auditors. The reason they go and attack these First Amendment auditors like this is because those guys have balls. Holy shit. And they know what they're doing. So they go in and they're good at it. The girls like them. They're shining with the Lord in them. So the cops who have been doing this for so long lose their mind and they attack them because they're losing at their own game. And with that, I have to go. No, I don't have to go yet. At 4 o'clock, I should watch some Cappity Blappities. Today, thank you again, Uncle Will, who sent me $10, because now in the morning, I'm going to take my notebook from my tent. I might sleep if it's warm enough, but it still is -5 out here. But eventually I'm going to go to a restaurant and I'm going to pull it out and I'm going to start working my notebook, pull out my notebook and start really hammering down this and following through, because the judge said the 27th, and I don't know if she meant January or today, so I have to stay awake today and I have to call them to make sure that I can address the public, because I'm going to have to go talk to this entire small town because they're all going to be in the courtroom today. if I have court today. So I'm gonna have to really hammer this in. So thank you for the donation. All donations is just fueling me to get me further in life. I've shown on the channel, I've applied to hundreds of jobs, and they usually just spit at my face socially. Like they either need me to cut my hair, and I'm like, I'm indigenous, I'm growing it out, I'm not gonna cut my hair. Or they say, I don't want to hire unhoused people, or they just don't get back to me and they hire their nephew, or they hire somebody else. And then they'll lie, and then all of a sudden I'm trespassed from the place I applied to work at. And then I have to go, they did it for 150 miles, guys. I went 150 miles from Randolph up to Morrisville, through Montpelier, over to St. Johnsbury, which is a bad place. They probably would have hired me, but at the time I didn't have a stable place to sleep at night, and I didn't want to go to a shelter. Like, I'm not saying I couldn't go to St. Johnsbury and be a Domino's delivery driver. I think I could. But at the time, it was the summer, and there were crackheads running around with guns, and I was hiding in the bushes under a sleeping bag, trying to make sure nobody stole my bike. I did, so people don't say you're a lazy, disabled piece of shit. In order to get a pizza, I walked around and I helped people jumpstart their cars. I solved people's problems. I made people that didn't want to come out and help people. So there was a person that had a car that needed a jump start. I knew that Domino's has to have jump starters because it's their job. So I went through, and there was a depressed old guy working that was angry and did not want to help anybody. And I convinced him to come out and jumpstart their car when he didn't want to, so that they would be able to pay the extra $5 I needed added on to probably Uncle Will's donation. I think he gave me $10 before, so that I had enough to buy my Domino's pizza. So I'm still hustling, and I made it work. I'm still making shit happen. Look, I got this fucking heater. I got this blanket. I got this tarp. Look at this wagon is expensive, guys. This wagon was $130. To move my stuff, I need this wagon. And now I can be off the ground where it's warm. Look. It's so cold, the air is frozen. This isn't, there's no water that froze this. There's no snow that came down. It's so cold outside that the moisture that was like in the molecules of this from my own breath, from sitting here breathing my condensation, escaped through and froze. It hasn't snowed. The air is so dry that my breath isn't cold. My breath isn't, there's no smoke, just like Antarctica. Because it's close to -10. I'm only here because I've figured out how to make this not overheat. So I'm cold and I'm disassociated, but my fingers aren't frozen because the air is hitting me like this. So that's all donations go towards. I'm not a homeless, lazy drug addict. I'm somebody that they are being prejudiced towards, and I'm exposing it, and I'm traumatized in a way that therapy isn't helping. But you know what? The unconditional love that animals are giving me is helping me. And it's not like, I don't want to say unconditional love the animals are giving me. It's more like the understanding that they have where there's no expectations. And I feel like I'm close. Like when the squirrel comes up and I feed him every day, and the squirrel hangs out with me, and the birds chirp and they come around my tent, no diddy, and they chirp and they sit with me. They literally won't leave until I feel better because my emotions are like scratching on a chalkboard for them. So the animals will come and help me. And they understand because they live that way. And because of them, I can kind of change in relation to them. So I have positive role models in my life. But that vibe, it's like if a raccoon came in and tried to work at your job, you're like, you got diseases, you don't know how to speak right. Every time I talk to you, you like run away and try to come back. Sometimes you get aggressive with me because you think I'm threatening you. Right? And the crazy part is that everyone in public values that, and they're copying it because they think that that's the way to go. But they don't know how to do it. Like, they understand that the guys that can embody that are like technically considered the most sexually viable because their energy feels the nicest. But just like the Bible says, because these people have privilege and wealth, they are so far from that, they have to pretend and make it up and be in deceit and lie. So that when somebody comes that embodies that, they see him as a threat and they have to kill him. So I'm going to watch some YouTube videos and prepare because it's going to be cold as fuck. I'm going to have to get out here, put my gloves on, pack up really quick before these guys show up, and then move my stuff. Or I'm going to have to hide in this tarp and hope that they think that this is abandoned for Christmas break and nobody will come out and call the police and bother me because it's Friday. But I'm seeing it in my head. I know it's going to be full of, like, we just had a pagan ritual, a mass pagan ritual of Christmas. So I'm not excited, and it's Capricorn energy, which is the devil in tarot. So I'm not excited for what's going to happen when I go into this place. I'm going to keep my hopes up and hope that the God that continuously rapes and tortures me, emotionally, physically, spiritually, throughout my life, is not going to have them torture me further, and that it will just be fine when I go to that McDonald's, and it won't be a bunch of people full of parasites that are going to be attacking me in the mycelial network. I'm going to hope that it's people that are jolly and happy after Christmas with their family. But either way, I feel like I'm of service to the universe and to the community by being a contrast to a better way of life. You heard me? I'm fucking hungry as shit. But look, this is all the food that I have. It's frozen rice. It's frozen rice. Look what I eat it with, guys. I put some McDonald's barbecue sauce in the rice. It's frozen solid. And I eat it with the tin for the rice with the handle that I use like this, where I grab it, I lock it like this, and this is how I eat. Frozen solid rice. It's pretty much just ice that I heat up with this heater that doesn't really work that well. But someone sent me $10 on my Cash App. Someone went to my channel description and he sent me $10, and I'm not worried about it. I'm at this point right now, I am hunting for a job and nothing will get back to me. I swear to God. I go on Indeed. Like, what am I doing? I sit here all day. Of course I go on Indeed. I have a long, extensive resume full of hard work. Like, I used to pull doubles in restaurants that had 200 tables. And a table at a ski resort is about 10 people sometimes. So it was close to 2,000 people, and I was the main dishwasher when I was 14, working 16-hour days. Yet my mom is convinced I was perma-tripping and disabled. Are you kidding me? You're a retard, Vicky. You're an entitled retard that has nobody to put you in your place. So you've grown into a disgusting narcissist, pretending to be an abused child. And I am what God sent to show you the exact opposite in contrast to you. So I am not an entitled narcissist. I'm acting that way. Whereas you are, and you act opposite. I act like I'm an entitled narcissist because it's funny for content. And it's easier for me to express myself this way than trying to like empathize with you guys. But at some point it will be better. I'll be more true to myself. I'm holding on to how good it's gonna feel at the other end of the tunnel. I used to like, this homeless journey was a lot of me going to public parks and just sitting there paranoid and processing my traumas. And I would just see what the universe had planned for me. And it was a lot of me being in the middle of these giant events. And I would just watch and see how all the different people interacted with each other. I remember I went to this place, one of my favorite parks. I think I recorded a video, but I think I was doing Snapchat back then. I used to have 3,000 followers on Snap, or whatever you call them on Snapchat. Like I had a big channel on Snapchat at one point that I would post my story of me going on adventures, and I would do Q&As, and I would post memes. So in 2022, I had a huge for Vermont. Like 3,000 people is how many people live in this town watching me every day. Now I get like 70 views on a video that I put time into and care about. Like I put effort into the performance. I'll get like 100 views. Live streams sometimes I get 50 peak concurrence. I don't know what it says on you guys, but right now it says there are 6 people. But sometimes, like my peak concurrence, it'll say like there were 50 people watching, but I'll never see 50 people on this number right here. So, and sometimes I have 0 people and my chat is popping off with like 10 people talking. That was back in August. Either way, I don't think they're real, guys. The people that I would see at the parks and the way that they would talk to each other feels like a staged play or a video game that I was watching, like a TV show meant for me. It feels like the world is a stage and I'm in it, but I'm also not of it. I'm watching it. I don't have a Bible verse for that, but I'm sure the Urban Rescue Ranch guy would know. And when I see people that follow God that are successful, they talk about how their childhood was like they talk about how experiences, like God-given experiences as a child, were hints at how beautiful the life would be in the future. It wasn't a test to be like, do you like this? It was more like showing you a sneak peek at the gift that God has for you, is what they say. So what have I been doing my whole life but hiding like this, vividly experiencing art at a high level, helping people through life, making jokes, getting laid, going on adventures. Hunting for a way to save the entire world. Hunting for a way to save the entire world. Whoa, this is spicy celery. That's pretty good. That spicy celery is good frozen. Whatever they do to the Kung Pao chicken to make this celery, frozen, is really good. It's cold as fuck. But yeah, I would just walk around to process my traumas. I would smoke Black and Mild, and I'm making like 2 songs a day. And I would just DoorDash all day in like a state of panic on energy drinks and nicotine, fighting the matrix, evolving my brain. It was great. I loved it. Going into different businesses and seeing the girls meet the handsome guy that shows up and nobody knows who he is. So having the new kid in town syndrome of being an attractive young man, but nobody knows that I'm weird and that I have a lot of problems. And then the police would attack me. But they would attack me for the opposite end of the spectrum. I was driving a nice car, wearing nice clothes. I had a gold chain and a gold watch that was expensive, and tattoos, and I wore Tim boots. And I was driving around New York, so the cops would pull me over and try everything they could. And then they would realize that I'm a maybe brain damaged, maybe schizophrenic. I don't think so. I think that we're just waiting for the world to wake up to what I've already woken up to. And that's all it is. And the people that try to convince me I'm otherwise are afraid and seem to be weaponized against me. Like, even in, like, people that support me, there seems to be, like, an undertone of, like, I'm mad that you are the shit. And I'm going to subtly try to degrade you. But it is what it is, man. I do have a Discord where I don't like that I have a Discord. I don't want a Discord, but I had like 10 people ask me. So I have a Discord. It's pretty cool. It's, if you go, I'll post the link on my community tab in a minute. That's for people that want to better their life and have access to what I have access to. Like, I have a lot of knowledge and I've lived a long life. And I've had a lot of role models for you to be around would take thousands of dollars that I've had around me. And I grew up with billionaires. So regardless of me choosing to live this life, it's not because I'm stupid. So if people have problems and they want a direct link to me, where, you know, when I come down and I eat my food and I'm bored and want to coach some people about life or give them advice, but I also want to watch my YouTube videos, until I have access to a second phone. But 2025 is in a week. 2025 is right around the corner. So I might not be able to do that because it might pick up and be a lot more intense. So this is kind of the time to ask me questions. Like, I know Owen Cook and Elliot Hulse. I know RSD Madison Max, Julian, Evolution Daily. Like, I've got self-help down to a science, literally. If anybody was interested in that, but it seems like people, much like me, think that they can do it all on their own. And then there's people that think that I have to be some type of rich billionaire in order to have a valuable opinion. When in reality, those rich billionaires envy my life. They would rather be living off the land and traveling with nothing, humbly. Like, Andrew Tate's downfall is that he's too rich to be humble, and he's searching for meaning in life. So he got everything he wanted, taking advantage of the system by using sex and sin, and now he's rich and he got worldly famous, but he'll never be able to live life the way his dad did, being a homeless, traveling chess grandmaster that he founded a lot of chess at the highest level. And he was a CIA linguist. So he trained people how to speak other languages better. He trained spies. Like 33 life paths, their influence on the planet is how they can build up others. It's just my North Node is in Leo, so. Okay. I'm going to watch some Rescue Ranch videos, and then I'm going to go get food in the morning. I appreciate people that liked it. Usually we have sometimes I'll have people that will watch and I'll ask them for hours. Like, I'll just keep saying over and over, like the video, so it gets into more people's groups, so it gets on more people's phones. And those guys will just sit there and watch, and they will not like on purpose. And then the police will show up, so I'm assuming that they're watching. They were watching to find a way to stalk me and harass me. And then they started popping in my chat. That has to be my parents or a troll. I really don't want to think that it was the cop that I talked about today, drunk in my group chat, high on meth, or in the chat talking shit. There was a couple cops that came in the chat a few times talking shit. Yeah, if I also muted you back in the day and you want a way to have access to me, my Discord is how to get a hold of me. Don't shit on each other in the Discord. Don't play your stupid power games. I'm tired of relationships. I want everybody to do better, and I'm slowly finding people that have talents and creative passions that are good at what they do, and hopefully I can be in a position to help the people that have helped me, which is all I want from life. Then I want to buy Vivek's cabin. If 700 people sent me $100, that's where we're at. If 7,000 people sent me $10, I'd be able to pay for Vivek's cabin. But that'd be also a down payment too. So I might only have to pay like $5,000 to start, and then $5,000 is just 5 weeks of work, and then maybe I could get the collective rent from my parents, because they both get disability. Let's say my dad gets $300 and my mom gets $300. I could say I'll give you $400 a month for the property. Plus I'll pay the property taxes. So I'll give you $5,000 down for 10 acres. And $400 a month. And I'll pay for the property taxes. So you're going to be making money consistently, no matter what. It's from the government, so it's not going anywhere. And then I just have to convince my parents. My mom already wants to live in the woods in an A-frame cabin. My dad already has an RV. To just move it there and then set up their life so that they can travel. And I would provide them the means to, without any expense on their part, be able to go down, drive an hour, listening to a podcast or whatever they want, which is I don't know if I don't know if my mom or my dad are watching. I don't know if you guys realize, but when's the last time any of you have taken a road trip anywhere? So all I've ever asked for was help, and the help that my mom, because my mom is probably just as psychic as I am. We both have, all of my family has Rh negative genetics. My dad has the gold ring around his iris that's present in Rh negative. My mom literally has Rh negative, and I'm the product of both of them, unless I'm some type of MK Ultra Truman Show baby. I have both of their stuff. I'm the literal continuation of both of them, with the soul. Like my genetic body that my soul is inside is the amalgamation of everything that my ancestors have ever done and experienced. So I was a cop in Bronx. I was the giant whose parents were killed at 14 years old by Vikings, that spent his entire life homeless, traveling around Ireland, trying to convince his peers to fight together to stop the Viking invasion and the sex trade, and was ostracized and beaten and abused everywhere he went, until he rounded up as many people as he could, then went back for the kids of the peers that abused him, and then him as an old man and all of his young army men did a big sweep, just kicking out everybody, until they brought them down to Dublin and kicked him off the island, where he died in battle. So he spent his entire life devoted to a war against Vikings alone, where for the most part from his childhood, he lived to be 73. From 14, so 59 years, Brian Boru spent at war against the Vikings
alone, where nobody would help him, where he was betrayed and fought until he got the children of the people that hurt him to take his side, and then swept the Vikings off the island and became the last High King of Ireland. And that's where O'Brien's come from. And he has Rh negative blood. And so does Queen Elizabeth. Because they're related. And so do we. And I'm a 33 life path, born on the 11th. Taurus rising. With my Jupiter in Aries in the 12th house. And if you put all those pieces together, you would shit your pants and you would feel responsible for a lot more than they would be overwhelming. It would be so overwhelming, a lot of you would hide in a den. And that's how I've lived my whole life. So I'm hoping that the reason that I can't really think about the future and that my Sagittarian energy is held back is that they're trying to give me a break. Is that I've been fighting for 10 years. So they were trying to force me to isolate like this. Is what I'm hoping. But it's probably not. Either way, I'm excited. I'm going to go get a breakfast. Uncle Will sent me $10. So McDonald's has buy one breakfast sandwich, get one for $1. And they have free refills in the morning. So I'm going to spend that $10. I'm going to get 2 sandwiches for like $7. And then I'm going to get a drink and I'm going to be able to refill the drink. Which is like that's stuff that would make me cry a year ago. 2 years ago in the winter when I had to like sneak into stores and steal food to eat in sub-zero temperatures where I didn't have heat and I was sleeping without a heater, without an outlet, in a broken down car, and people were trying to hurt me. I was being trespassed from places. It was a lot more violent and dangerous. I had nobody in my corner. My mom, who's just consistently my op for some reason, was still trying to have me thrown in jail back then. She didn't want me to get help. She wanted me to go to jail. And still, I've done nothing. It's just mentally ill people in Section 8, narcissistic abusers that thrive off of my pain, the same way the police do, hiding in their lack of accountability for changing their life for the better and holding themselves to a higher standard. Will attack anyone that embodies that, like moths to a flame. Except the moths want to eat the flame. You heard me? So I'm excited to be able to go get a fucking sandwich. I haven't had a bacon, egg, and cheese since the summertime. Oh my god, I'm gonna do the extra breakfast sauce. So I'm offering to pay people to edit my videos. It might not be exactly now where you get paid, but the better the videos, the higher the chance of more people coming in. I'm still working towards a job. I'm moving slowly. Waiting for a big jump. I have a lot of great ideas. So if people wanted to help me edit, I did all these long form rants of me telling stories to eventually be put into edited videos for content, like podcast episodes or a story that people can follow on Spotify. And then eventually, I've had people come into my life trying to do a documentary on it before. And I've only been through crazier, cooler things. So I don't see why there would be less of a chance of getting picked up by a film crew. But I'm also very aware of who you guys are in society. Not maybe necessarily you, but just the outside world. Like, last year I had a guy named Kyle Blakeman tow my car to help me, and he made a Facebook post about me. Like, they made Facebook posts about helping the homeless people on TikTok for clout. He did the same thing, where he used my suffering and pain for clout and reputation in the community and attention, energy points. And then as soon as he got what he wanted, he became an abuser. He came back to hurt me, and he told people that he originally told to help me once he got his status. And people were like, oh, I like him. And his business got more business because people spoke positively of him. Then he just left me out to the wolves to die. He used me. He used my pain and suffering for clout, to story to gain reputation points. And then he left me to die. That's happened more than once. So we'll see what happens, guys. Thanks for listening. If you get any value from this, like, comment, subscribe, helps the algorithm. Share, hit the share button with your nose. This isn't the type of content I like, but it's what comes naturally to me with the circumstances I have. I don't want to leave the tent. I don't want to leave my tarp to go on adventures yet. So this is kind of all I can do at the moment until I have enough for a second phone, a computer, a portable power station, a car, a way to make merch, a way to make my albums, a guitar to add guitar to all my hundreds of songs that I have, a way to fix my computer to make the rest, the other hundreds of songs I have that I work really hard on, ways to travel, a nice camera to edit the videos, self-defense classes, a protection dog, I have tons of video ideas I want to make, but it seems like my life, it's like I have to work with other people. It's like I get the entire universe blessed to me, but I have to find a way to make it work with others. Just like Brian Baru did. I have to find a way to get everyone else involved in order to make it work, or else God will not. He'll only bring me this far and no further. So, struggling with that. I've beaten porn addiction. I'm not sure if I was addicted to porn or if I was just escaping into it because I was lonely and homeless. But I used to watch porn a lot, and now I don't at all. I used to smoke cigarettes all the time, like chain smoke all the time, and now I don't. Now my vice is kind of food, but it's not like I overeat, but it is like I spend more than I have. Like if somebody sends me a $50 donation, that could go to a separate phone. But instead of buying a separate phone and starving for a couple weeks, I'll buy 10 days worth of McDonald's and then starve for a couple weeks. So that's not healthy, and it's not good for me, and it's not a great decision, but I was still biking every day, and I wanted the protein. That was the only way for me to get protein, a cheap way, was these cheap McDonald's burgers. And it was a safe place, and it was the only way I had access to warm food because they took my grill from me. After I publicly supported a bunch of migrant workers that were protesting to get paid better. Suddenly, after I was seen on the news helping by spending $40 of my food stamps and then $40 of somebody's donation, giving these migrant workers everything they needed to continue their protest across the state because they weren't working anymore. They were just fully protesting. What I noticed now, because I did that before I saw their setup, is that they had a nice ass fucking car. They pulled up in a really nice car. I don't know how or why or what was going on. Maybe they made better decisions than I did, and they all worked together to buy one. But I was on foot in broken clothes, raggedy clothes, and I spent money I couldn't afford to help people that wouldn't even give me their food. Like they had nice cooked tacos and rice and beans, and they wouldn't let me eat, even though I just $50 giving them stuff that would help them continue their fight. Just to come back and see the racist people that were letting me use their grill were upset that I supported the indigenous over the security guards that were trying to make them feel afraid. So they took the grill from me that day. They saw me out. They were fine for months, and then they saw me out in public with the indigenous, and then suddenly they took my shit. So it is what it is, guys. You can't be this far into white Vermont. But it is what it is, guys. We're waiting for those people to die. We're just waiting on those guys to die. And then their kids, hopefully, by the time their kids are their age, there will be so many people from other cultures here and artificial intelligence that they won't be able to perpetuate that culture anymore. And the people that have devoted their life to trying to destroy other cultures will be wiped off the planet. And then it will be me and the squirrels and my hundreds of kids from hot wives with dark hair and dark eyes and thick booties. And then that's all. That's all, folks. Have a good night.